Hey, so seeing how we're pretty close to the Halloween season and two interesting horror sequels have come out recently, and we got Twilight Tober Zones going on, every single day, and we don't know how the algorithm works anymore. Who does anymore? But so we're deciding to combine two reviews into one. I also have another review later this week. I have an early screening of Venom 3, which I'm sure will be just as good at these two movies. Maybe it will. Who knows? I should be optimistic. I should be foolish and be optimistic. Who knows? Might actually be good. Anyway, this is not a Venom 3 review. I'm deciding to combine Smile 2 and Terrifier 3 into one video here, because I feel like I can get my thoughts out pretty quick about them in one video here, and I'll put like a timestamp somewhere to, make it clear if you're here for just one or the other. You can go to that. With that said, I guess I'll start combine Smile and Start. I guess I will start with Smile 2, because that's the one I literally just saw last night. And before I talk about that, I should talk about my thoughts on the first film. I liked it. I didn't love it. I liked a lot of the scary imagery. I liked the idea. But it had one or two little issues with it, I remember, and one of them was the ending. I guess I won't give anything away, even though, if you're seeing Smile 2, you're probably seeing the first one, but I didn't like the ending. I thought it kind of went against the idea of what it was trying to get across, and I know you kind of tackle, because I'm usually somebody that's like, yeah, the commentary is way too blatant in a lot of media nowadays, but this is one where I thought, you could have sticked a little closer instead of just doing the traditional horror trope thing. But I still enjoyed it. I thought it was creepy and unsettling, had some great imagery, had some good ideas in there. But I don't remember, if you were to ask me, what's the name of the main character, I couldn't tell you, or what'd she do, or what, I probably couldn't tell you. I just remember more the imagery and the idea. That's not the case with Smile 2. Smile 2 I liked a lot more. I was almost surprised to see it's the same director. This director hasn't done too much outside of these two movies. Really just, a couple of shorts and stuff like that. But this one really took the ideas of the first film and improved upon them. I can't say it evolves them too much more, but I don't need that. I just need whatever little issues I had in the first film just sort of either tweaked or, like I said, just improved on and made scarier, and the tone made scarier, and really make us remember the main character, since we are really diving into this idea of letting unchecked past business kind of take over your mind. You could argue it's about, mental health and all that stuff. And I thought they handled that so much better here, from a series where I already thought it was done pretty well in the first one. Not great, but fine. I got the idea of it. This one, I was just invested pretty much from beginning to end. They have the loosest connection between the first film and the second film, which they didn't even need. I thought they technically could have left it out, but the way they handle it in the opening is very, very cool. There's a lot of neat shots in this movie. Some you've seen before. The opening one is one long shot that they use CG to cut up and everything, but it still helps the feel and the anxiety and get your heart beating and stuff like that, so it's done well. But then one of the shots after we're introduced to this singer that Naomi Scott plays, and it starts off on a TV, just on some wall, and it slowly zooms in, and slowly we go from the TV into the studio. You almost kind of break the screen, and the audio on the TV becomes you're in the room with the person. It goes from TV audio to real audio, you're inside the room, and you literally break the fourth wall here, don't you? And it's just one of those subtle little things where I think a lot of audiences probably wouldn't even think that hard about it, but it sort of brings you more into this character's world. And they do such a good job bringing us into this character's world. There's good twists and turns. There's good surprises that you won't necessarily see coming. You really get invested in her story. And a lot of that, I know a lot of people are saying this, and I'll be another one, is Naomi Scott. Man, talk about someone that has not been in the best stuff, but she's always good. And every single time I see her in something, I'm like, oh man, can she finally get something where she can shine a good project? Because, she was Jasmine from the Aladdin remake. I think she was in a Power Rangers remake and stuff. And she's always good, but it's man, she needs that good script, that good director. And she got it here, because this is pretty much her movie. I don't think I've ever seen a horror actor go through as much and throw as much into a role, both physically and in terms of acting, emotionally, and all that, psychologically, all of that, since maybe Bruce Campbell from the Evil Dead movies. I mean, just every single shot giving 1,000,000% and is very believable. And, those are two different styles, obviously. Bruce Campbell is more, again, physical slapstick and, very much, comedic and campy and stuff like that. This one definitely has some comedic elements too, but, is playing much more for drama. Both have to find various ways to scream and look terrified to a point where you're not bored watching them. And that is much trickier to do than you would think. And like I said, she's totally believable and just does a really, really fantastic job here. On top of that, because she's a pop star in this, I know it's gonna sound strange, but there's a lot of like music video sections and dancing and choreography and they're done really well. This is kind of what Trap should have been. A lot of people made a complaint that movie was just Shyamalan trying to showcase, his daughter, who's a singer and everything. The daughter's a fine singer, fine, dancing and all that, but it was just so distracting how much it was a showcase for it, where this just works in so much more organically, and you really feel like what a person in this position would have to go through. And of course, she does have this past that we're going to find out more about. And without going too much into spoilers, the ending really follows through this time, where I thought the other one kind of fell behind a little bit. And again, that could be a personal preference, because I definitely know people that are just like, well, a horror film, yeah, you want that kind of ending for a horror film. And I thought, yeah, but if you're going to do this, you can work with it a little better. And I thought this one did. And I'm watching this movie and I'm thinking, man, I hope it goes... Somewhere in the third act, I was thinking, man, I hope it goes the direction I want it to go. And it does, and it's really great. This is one where it really can have its cake and eat it too. And what I love about this film, I really don't see much in horror films, and I love when horror films can do this, is that it feels like it really is made. It's made for audiences, but it's also made for fans of horror films who know where the scares are going to come. You're waiting for it's going to come behind the corner. It's going to come 3, 2, 1. Now it's going to come when the door closes. And so, there's so many setups where you go, yeah, I know where it's going to pop up. And I don't know, when I was younger, maybe this is the reason scary films don't usually scare me that much, is that I always, once I saw once or twice, I just knew to always look for that in a scary movie. And I was always kind of waiting for it. Well, okay, when somebody sees something that they think is scary and then it's now they go, and they start to turn this way, there's going to be something over here. Always. And then what it is usually isn't that scary. It's imagery that I've seen in a million other horror films. This one is aware of that and really plays around with it. There are some, I do not jump at scary movies. I jumped once or twice in this. They really lay these out very well. And it isn't just the placement of the scary image. It's making the image very scary. There's a lot of terrifying nightmare fuel in this. And it's creating an atmosphere where you just do not want to see something really scary, really frightening at the point where you're letting down your defenses. So you kind of have... this setup here. There's one scene where somebody isn't looking at anything and he swears he sees something there. And just what they do with it just so got me. I mean, and all the audience jumped. And it's a great movie for that. It's a great movie to watch with a crowd and just get everybody's reactions. The only downside is if you do have a big crowd, there are a lot of quiet moments, which is great. You want that in a horror film. But not every audience member knows the etiquette. So when they're going in the popcorn, so I think this is going to happen. Sometimes I can see why people don't want to go to a theater with a crowd. But man, when you get those payoffs, it's so great. And I was really impressed with how well done this movie was. It did pretty much everything I wanted it to do. If I had one nitpick, and this is really just a nitpick, again, without going into too much spoilers of the ending, it's that there's a lot of twists and turns. There's a lot of surprises, like I said. I guess you could call it a big surprise at the end. I think it was supposed to be a big surprise. I'm not sure. If you take it as that or you don't, it still works. But with what they do at the end, I was kind of hoping, I usually like when they leave it vague, but I want a few more details about it. I want a few more details about how it works so I could go back and watch it again and be like, oh, so this is what was going on, or that's what was going on here and everything, where it's really just kind of one big thing that's going on that you don't have to go back and watch it again. You can just sort of be like, oh, okay, well, this is so vague and so loose in interpretation. You can kind of interpret it however you want, which is fine too. Like I said, it doesn't ruin anything, but it's one of those things where I'm like, man, I'd probably make this like a 4-star movie if they really worked out the technicals of that. Well, okay, well, when was this going on? When did this start? How much of this is real? How much of this is not? And that's definitely something that both movies play with a lot in terms of how much is the person really seeing and how much are they not. And that's just so terrifying to me. I mean, just not even knowing what your reality is. What you're seeing right in front of you could be something totally different a second ago. And they play with it very, very well. Like I said, they really do a good job starting you in an already uncomfortable place and just making it get more and more uncomfortable and just more and more like anxiety provoking and everything. I mean, you really feel like the stress of what these people who are, megastars probably have to go through. And then just having like this terrible thing on top of it, that this terrible curse happening. I really, really dug it. Really, really got into it. So, and I definitely wanted to bring it up around the Halloween season because I think I was somebody that liked the first film fine. I wasn't really looking that hard to check out the sequel, but then when I started to hear some good things about it, I got more and more excited, and it is worth it. In my opinion, I think it's better than the first one. I think it's far better than the first one. I liked the first one, but I really thought this one really, really did a great job. So, all right, that's Smile 2. Now let's talk about Terrifier 3. Before I talk about this film, I should talk about my thoughts on the other movies. I saw the original Terrifier on Netflix years ago before anyone knew about it. Nobody was talking about it, and nobody even heard of the movie. And just in the little preview, the little thing where you click on, the title of the movie and they show a little image from it, not an image, but like a little preview of just like, somebody talking or whatever. I think back then there weren't even trailers, they were just clips from the movie. And the first thing I saw is this woman looking at this clown in a diner, and he's just sitting there looking at her and he just goes like that. I was hooked. I was sold. I am like, what is this thing? I don't know if this is a comedy, a horror film, what? I have no clue. But the way this actor, David Howard Thornton, the way he just went from that to this big smile, I was just like, I have to know this dude's story. And after that, I watched it, absolutely fell in love with it. I always tell people it's about a killer mime. I know technically it's not a mime, but I mean, I think that just gets across the point better because there's a million killer clowns. And I think as soon as you tell someone it's a killer mime, the person can't talk. They just get into it more and they get the idea more. But these are movies that just go out of their way to go super, super gory, and they try to top themselves in every single movie. And even though the first film was probably supposed to be a standalone film, like yes, there is a little bit of an open ending, but every slasher film is, I feel like they've done a pretty good job continuing this story. And so with the first film, I really enjoyed it. I mean, just absolutely, I was trying to tell everybody, have you seen Terrifier? It's a killer mime, you gotta see it, And I said, I don't even like slasher films, I don't get into them that much, but when they do something different, I get super, super into them, I get super excited because maybe it helps me feel like, okay, I can understand this a little bit more. I can see why people get into like Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees and stuff like that. As I said before, I don't really get into them unless they do something really different and really kind of evolve the genre. And I feel like this did. So I really love the first one. Second one I also really, really like. It's a very long movie. I didn't feel the length of it until the end. The climax is strangely the point where I kind of said, okay, maybe we can speed this up a little bit. There's a lot of slow-mo in the climax, and I know you're, it's one of those things you're supposed to read it as like, okay, well, the slow-mo is the very abstract, atmosphere and everything, and really get you kind of into it. I'm like, yeah, but this movie's like, what was it, like 2.5 hours long, maybe longer, I can't remember. But that was like my one complaint about the movie. Everything else I really liked. Again, I like that it tried to up the ante. I like it tried to go gorier. I like they give them like sidekicks now. That's really, really funny. I think it's really cool, and they're always played great. The leads were, interesting enough. They're kind of just standard leads, but, there's a good mystery going on, and there's kind of this question of what the lore of this character is, and it seems like with every movie they reveal a little bit more. So that brings us to Terrifier 3, which again is trying to top itself. It's a Christmas movie, so of course I'm gonna like this. I love movies that combine Halloween and Christmas, and right from the start they do that. And I saw with a packed house. I mean, people were ready to watch this and laugh and go, ugh, ah! I mean, they were ready. And they brought it, and it was great. There's some people who haven't seen the other films that just had some great reactions. There's one scene where, what was it? It's a death in an attic, that's all I can say. And it has a shard of glass. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And this dude, like 2 seats down, he's just sitting there watching. I just see him he's looking, he just goes, sits up. And he just sits there like on the edge of his seat, but not like he's like really in suspense. He's just like, what the hell is this? And he's just watching. And as soon as the scene ended, it just goes quiet. And he just says really loud, what the F am I watching? And just the whole crowd erupted. Because it's such an odd, strange experience, and people love being put in this mode of like uncomfortableness, like so uncomfortable you have to laugh, and it's just so gory, it's so unpleasant, and it's so trying to push the boundaries, but it's so over the top that, you know, we have to just laugh at it. And pretty much anytime Art the Clown or his sidekicks, you know, again, where we're kind of getting different versions of that in every movie, is on screen, it's fantastic. Whenever it has to cut back to the main characters, it definitely slows down. And again, it's not even like that long. It's shorter than the other movie, but it feels longer because I feel like they couldn't quite figure out what to do with the main characters in this one. I saw them in the last movie and I enjoyed them, but something about this one didn't work quite as well, because there wasn't as much a mystery to it. There was more of a mystery in the previous film, and I do like some of the stuff, like they'll show flashbacks with like the father and everything. Again, tie in a little bit more to the lore, but it's basically this family trying to enjoy Christmas, and you know, which again, as a guy who also loves like Christmas rom-coms, like I know they're supposed to be bad. I know that's what's fun about them, but there's a lot of that stuff going on, you know, which is fine, but then you're just waiting for the character to realize that Art is back, and what does this character do with that and everything? How's this person process that? How's the family process that? And it's fine, it's not bad, it's just every single time it cuts back to him, there's never like really an excitement, or there's never like, the adrenaline always kind of stops because the kills are so good and Art the Clown is so entertaining that every single time it cuts back to him, I'm saying like, yeah, you could have cut out like 3 of these times they cut back to him, I feel like. So it is one of those films where I feel like you could have trimmed it down a little bit or had just something else going on. Because like I said, these aren't bad characters. But in this one, I feel like they didn't feel like they were pushing the story forward that much. I think that's the big thing. Something had to be pushed forward with it rather than remembering what happened in the last one and preparing for what's gonna happen in this one. Like something else had to be added in there, but it still has all the stuff that if you're a fan of the other 2 movies, you're gonna be a fan of here. I mean, I didn't think they could top that death in the first one. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Everyone knows the hacksaw one. I've seen the first one. But there's one that I'm just like, yeah, I think that's it. I think that's probably the one where I just went, oh! And again, I think people know what I'm talking about. And what's funny with that scene is that there's one moment where he's freezing a person with this, I forget what it was. Like he put like some sort of nitrogen or something that freezes you, you know, in like a fire extinguisher. And he does that to this guy, and he does it down below. And I'm thinking to myself, oh man, how could a Terrifier movie not take advantage of this really creepy, over-the-top death that I thought they're gonna go with? And you know, it's like, no, wait, it's coming. And it happens later in the movie with a different person. So I like that. I like it makes you think, oh, it didn't go that route. Oh, it does, and it shows it in great detail. So yeah, that was great. It's definitely building up. There's gonna be another one. You know, it's to be continued. It's not like, oh, the killer's just still alive or anything like that. It legit is that there's a big open-ended ending where it has to continue. There's no way it can stop here. It's a big to be continued. And it works. Surprisingly, it's kind of the flip of the second one, where when we did get to the climax, and the climax is good, but I do wish there was a little bit more of it. It's one of the few, I guess you could say it's one of the few times where I really did want more of a movie's climax, even though it did probably give you the appropriate amount of time most movies have. But with this one, it's just so much fun, and there is still a mystery to the lore and what this thing is and its background and everything that you do say, yeah, it's so good at giving you what you want. Maybe I don't want it to end. And there's definitely going to be another movie, and that's awesome. I'm really excited for it. And I feel like I said, the only nitpick is that I feel like the main character should have been evolving the story a little better. It's not that they never do, it's that they could have done it better, to a point where every time it cuts back to them, I don't say to myself, well, okay, here's like kind of the boring part of the movie. The actors are good. I think this is a story thing where they just have, if you're gonna cut back that much, because they do a lot, you sort of get with the formula of the film, where you're gonna cut to Art killing somebody in a fun way, and then you cut back to the main characters living their lives, or seeing how they live their lives after the events of the previous film. So they needed to add something else there, I feel like. But the actors are good, and they're not bad characters. There's just something else that needs to evolve it, and Art the Clown is still fantastic, and his new sidekicks that he gets every single time are also fantastic too, and just wonderfully unpleasant. I mean, if you haven't seen these movies, it probably goes without saying. I mean, I just be forewarned, they are horrendously mean. They are horrendously harsh. And they just go out of their way to be over the top unpleasant. Where I feel like Smile 2 is definitely unpleasant too. That definitely tries to create an atmosphere of just depression, anxiety, you're tense, you're just like on the edge of your seat, just like, oh man, like you just feel the world's closing in on you. This is much more unpleasant with the gore and who's gonna make it out and what horrendous way is someone gonna be killed. So it's two very different types of unpleasantness. Both are done very, very well. And both are great for the Halloween season if you want just some legit, really fun scares. Both I feel like would give you they give you nightmares for different reasons, I think. People would be thinking about the scares in Terrifier 3, and I think people think about just kind of the imagery and the uncomfortable feeling of Smile 2. So both are really, really good. We got, a week, 2 weeks, something like that, of Halloween left, and these are good movies to see. So it's a good year for horror film, I feel like. Was it when Longlegs came out, which was pretty decent? I feel like, we're getting a good groove of horror again, and they're not expensive. They're not movies that, whatever the 10th most expensive movie ever made or anything like that. These are cheaper movies. I guess I can't say they're cheap, but they're using practical effects, and people want to see that. They want to see something that's really there, and because it looks more realistic and more effort is put into it, more creativity is put into it than seeing Indiana Jones jump out of a plane and explosions everywhere. I mean, it just looks so false now, and it looks so cheap. If you show me these two movies and say which one's more expensive, I would have thought Terrifier 3 would have been more expensive. Between this and Indiana Jones, was it 5? Yeah, between that movie, honestly, because it's really there. So, yeah, I really hope this is something that's sort of starting up again, where horror is kind of getting two movies I want everyone to look at and say, okay, we got it. 3. I want people to look at and say, okay, let's be more like this. The Terrifier movies, because they really do make the gore. It's all really there and everything. RRR, because that's really pushing the limits of what we can do with, being over the top and cinematic, but still dramatic. And Top Gun Maverick, because they actually went out and they flew those planes. They really did these stunts and everything. So I think there's a hybrid of those 3 movies that I feel like we can really kind of get back on track and get just good movies again that people can get excited for and people want to go to the movie theater to see, to experience. So that's what I really like to see. With that said, what did you think about these movies? What did you think about Smile 2 and Terrifier 3? Let me know your thoughts on them. Like I said, I'll have a review of Venom 3 coming out soon. I'll have an Untitled review show for that coming out soon. Thank you all so much. I'll see you next time. Take care.